Extreme things happening.
So Robbie Williams shaves his head despite undergoing twice the most permanent treatment that you can possibly get today for your hair loss.
No, I've just got some round the
They've got
side
the colour
done.
wrong on the front.
There is one major issue, however. Most people don't even notice that stopped Robbie Williams from having another hair transplant and improve his hair coverage. Analyzing his hair loss story definitely gave me several huge realizations why hair transplant will actually work only short term by more individuals than you would think. And right now I want to share all of these realizations with you so you have the highest chance of making your hair transplant last long and succeeding over hair loss in the long run. So make sure you stay tuned. And before we start, as always, shout out to our sponsor GoFiber. These are hair building fibers you can use to mask any thinning or patchy areas on your scalp to make your hair look thicker and better. So make sure you check out the link in the video description below where you can visit GoFiber, get a free sample of your choice and try them out. See if you like them. By the time he was in his late 30s, he started having hair loss issues, apparently on his corners and middle portion of the hairline.
No, I've just got some round
They've
the
got
side
the colour
done.
wrong on
And
the front.
I didn't even need it. I had like 3 months off. I got bored.
Now, by comparing the photos from 2012 to 2014 and 15, we don't even notice his hairline changing significantly. Plus, if we look at his recent photos, we actually notice that the recession on the corners goes naturally, and that makes any major hair transplant on the hairline and corners unlikely. Even the diffusely thinning point in the middle of his hairline remains unchanged for the last 2 decades. What I think was more likely the case was a series of smaller transplants occurring in the frontal third to compensate for the ongoing diffuse thinning on this area. Because the transplants were many and small ones, we were never able to spot a drastic change in either his hairline appearance or in his hair volume overall. Eventually in 2020 he decided to shave his head because he ran out of the donor hair. That is both confusing and unexpected at the same time.
To see me losing my hair as it's happening, getting thinner and thinner. Nobody will give me a thatch job because they say that my hair is too thin. I'm just going to have to embrace what is happening.
So what went wrong? He was actually rejected by multiple doctors who said that the donor region was too thin. And if we look at it from this video, we can clearly see that the back of his head is done and no more hair should be really extracted here to preserve a natural look. And although he could probably squeeze out another 1000 grafts out of this donor, the donor seems to be like 85% depleted by now, while he still needs more hair. And he's only 48, so it's likely that maybe in 5 years from now he would need even more hair to cover up even more hair loss that we'll still probably uncover. How likely is this to happen to you? Well, let me give you 3 possible explanations, or better said, 3 things that can make your hair transplant especially short lasting. How hair loss can actually win over your hair transplant in the long run, even if you are not the guy in his mid-20s who gets a hair transplant with aggressive hairline design, with temporal hair restoration. He depletes his donor by the end of his 20s already, and he is not going to get on medication. So even if you're not that, hair loss can still kind of win over your hair transplant in the long run, and that will probably happen to Robbie Williams as well. In this article, he admitted that the hair loss pills he used to take were making him depressed. So probably he was taking about finasteride or dutasteride, because these are only, widely prescribed drugs for hair loss that have the potential to make somebody depressed. And we're talking about the allopregnanolone problems and all these things. I'm not going to go so much into detail right now. And that's why 5-alpha reductase blockers, especially taken orally, can have the potential to make you depressed. So probably happened to him, so he stopped. That already suggests that he used them for some time, but not for long enough time, not for the very long term, as he ideally should have. If you don't take those 5-alpha reductase blockers like finasteride, dutasteride, or at least a topical anti-androgen, if you don't take them like a year or 2 years after your hair transplant, you can already see like a pretty drastic change in the way your native hair will look like after 2 years of not taking them after your hair transplant. You will not be able to properly blend that hair. It's going to look like very dense here, not so dense on the existing hair. That is also the reason why I suggest you guys to test your response to any type of 5-alpha reductase blocker like finasteride, dutasteride, oral or topical anti-androgen, and test it already before your hair transplant so you know how it works for you in terms of efficacy, how you feel on it, whether you get any side effects or not. That is the way how you can maximize hair transplant winning over hair loss in the long term, not the other way around. Now, the second possible explanation why, in my opinion, hair loss won over his hair transplant attempts was that his donor zone was probably just average. And by average, I mean from 4,000 to 4,500 hair follicles or grafts available in the donor for the FUE extraction. And that is why, guys, it is crucial to make sure that you are the right candidate to begin with before your hair transplant. And sometimes it's hard because nowadays many doctors, they don't even have time to sit with a patient one-on-one, online or offline, for at least like 45 to 60 minutes and tell him all he needs to know about how good of a candidate he is, whether his donor is good, whether he's not having too many telogen hairs in it, whether it's not affected by some diffuse unpatterned alopecia or retrograde alopecia or some other skin conditions that could complicate the yield of the grafts, compromise the survival rate and stuff like that. And guys are getting their hair transplants with good doctors, they pay a lot of money, but they get mediocre results because the regrowth rate is very low, and that is why it's crucial to have that consultation with the doctor, and that's why I offer the one-on-one calls with me, so I can actually sit down with you one-on-one and tell you all the things about your donor or recipient area, on all these important factors that will help you succeed with hair transplant game and help you win over hair loss in the long run, because that's what we want. That's something that I think Robbie Williams didn't do properly. Probably the first doctor didn't really give him enough insights about how good of a candidate he is, how he should plan his hair transplants in the future, and the reality that the doctor actually advised him to do a hair transplant in 2013, the transplant he didn't even need, just shows me like how it works today, that many doctors actually are focusing primarily on the money and just want you to sign up for at least some type of job so they have some money and some business from it, even if you may not need it, even if you may be too young for it, or maybe just too early because you didn't even test the treatments enough, but they just want to sign you up right now because that's what would be nice for them. Now let's come to the third explanation on how hair loss, or why hair loss can actually win over your hair transplant in the long run. We talked about if you don't take medication or you stop taking it after the surgery, then it's likely that the hair loss will win eventually. And we also talked about if you are not the right candidate and you are maybe not aware of it, or you're not aware of the weakness of your donor area, and then you get transplants over the course of your life, eventually it's likely that hair loss wins over, if that's the case. And the third reason will be something happens during the procedure that causes maybe high transection rate, low graft survival rate, and you don't get any hair regrowth. That can also happen. I think something went wrong with one of his 2 confirmed hair transplants that produced suboptimal graft survival, in my opinion. And it wouldn't surprise me really that another high-profile celebrity like him would choose a bad doctor for his hair transplant who is not like 10 out of 10 expert in his field. He was persuaded probably to try alternative treatments, you know. He mentioned as vials injected into his scalp twice that cost as much as his grandma's house and gave him 0 results. What he has done was nothing more than maybe a PRP treatment that is usually used for growth factor stimulation in the skin, something that derma rolling or microneedling also is able to do. Plus, PRP was known for improving follicle vascularization and prolonging the anagen phase, something what minoxidil is also known to do, and inducing a faster transition from the telogen into the anagen phase of the dermal papilla cells. Now, for me, this is nothing else than a 100 times more expensive version of minoxidil with the derma rolling, okay? So choose, you know, spend your money wise. I mean, if you want that, spend your money on that. But the results you get from PRP are not going to be only like inferior, way inferior to derma rolling and minoxidil. You're going to pay 100 times more for it, guys. So in a better case, okay, he was introduced maybe also some stem cell treatment or exosomes, but let's stay with the stem cell treatment. That is not a PRP, but they usually do something like They take a biopsy, something like they do with Regenera Activa, and they create stem cells from that, and they inject these cells into your body. Sometimes there is also a period of culturing these stem cells and multiplying them for some periods of time and then injecting them, like it was with Replicell RCH01. That was a big disappointment for how much money and research and time went into researching that product, I think 10 years, and the results were that it was not even as good as minoxidil. So come on, this is unacceptable. And these treatments are being often hyped even as monotherapies, like take stem cell treatments, take PRP, but they fail miserably because they do not target the underlying issue of the androgenetic alopecia, which is the androgen and genetic factors, both kind of causing that issue. And now, if you are somebody like Robbie who doesn't want to take finasteride or dutasteride, but still you are interested in managing your hair loss long term, you should watch this video next, because this is the exact video where I reviewed 33 hair loss treatments, and out of all of them I picked only a handful of them that are really good in long-term hair loss stabilization, minimizing the side effects, and really good and high response rates. Treatments that you should definitely use for long term and thus minimize the hair shedding and maximize the hair regrowth. So make sure you click it right now, and I'm gonna see you there.